1930s, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt addressed the nation through a series of radio broadcasts known as the Fireside Chats. His aim was to reassure the common man that our society would recover from its troubled times. But we're far from 1930, and I deal with a different kind of fire. For a new era of worldly frustration, we offer a fresh conversation. I'm Greg Carlwood, and these are the Higherside Chats.
How's it going, Higherside Chatters? Wow, episode 90. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. Hope everybody's liked the guest lineup so far in 2014. I've gotten a few emails from people saying things like, what does Duncan Trussell have to do with conspiracy? Or Stephen Greer's just a disinfo shill. I can't believe you had him on. You've lost all credibility. And I might get a little bit of that for this episode too, but look, it's a blessing and a curse to try to cast as wide a net as I do on THC. Some people want more of one thing, others want less of another. But I'm just trying to do what I've always done, which is help intelligent people make the case for a fringe topic that is their forte, in an attempt to get people's mind to go from a no fucking way to a maybe so. That's really the goal. It's not to tell you what to believe. In fact, I'm most happy when, at the end of a show, you aren't sure what to believe, because on one hand, we made a pretty compelling case, but on the other hand, that's just too crazy. That's the sweet spot, right there. It's the conspiracy G-spot, really. And the journey should be fun and entertaining and a little bit scary, but you shouldn't be afraid to say, yeah, I listened to a guy talk about the Boston bombings who thinks it was a staged event. What is wrong with that? Isn't it just as insane to believe that anything that comes from a government and a media that has been caught time and time again lying to you and fucking you? Why should you believe what they tell you? Yeah, we've killed our own people before, but not this time. We promise. Yeah, we've been caught running drugs. Sorry, yeah. We've held back the release of captured prisoners for political gain. I mean, people in power have gotten caught doing pretty much everything you can get caught doing. Why do we still accept their narrative? Doesn't the burden of proof for anything covered on mainstream news now lie with them? It shouldn't be taken as a given. It should be taken as a lie. But yet I'm the idiot. I'm the evil monster because I asked the question that the government and media might be adding one more lie to their list. I'm the bad guy. I'd say it's disrespectful not to see if there were crisis actors in Boston. And by the way, that doesn't mean a real bomb didn't go off and kill people in Boston. That's where it gets really convoluted. I think there very well could have been bombs on that day and real people hurt. But it seems that the patriotic archetypes and the on-screen scenes were faked. Like scenes in a movie by a company called Strategic Operations. Look it up. See, I assume at this point that they're always lying. So I search for the alternatives, and sometimes there's a compelling case and sometimes there's not. But if you don't spend time looking, then you can't say shit. If you take the word of liars as truth until proven otherwise, then you're setting yourself up to be real disappointed one day. Man. Not something I normally do, but I've been going on a few other shows lately. In fact, I made an appearances page where you can see all the past outside appearances that I've made. But it's made me feel like I need to be a little more vocal about things once in a while, just to stay fresh, just to stay ready. I guess that's what that was. Either way, it's the 90th episode. One money bomb has ended and another has begun. In this one, we got $380 in donations, so I took that. I gave $190 to a listener. His name's Patrick. We're going to talk to him for a minute. He had a hot mic, real hot mic. So I shortened this up and cut it up as best I could. We're also going to skip the news this week. But I will say, once again, I know this week's guest is a controversial figure. But when I hear the reasoning behind a lot of his advice, it makes logical sense to me. And just saying that it's unconventional doesn't really do anything to sway my opinion. We just went over how governments and their agencies and their established institutions and universities and media companies, these things that the elite fund to push their controlled view of society, why should we believe that that's true? We hear that healthy fats and meat are necessary to having our brain work well, and I think about religions not wanting people to eat meat for centuries, and something clicks. Wow, that's convenient. Maybe powerful people had that information. They just didn't have the technology to put fluoride in everybody's water yet, but they could make the meat less meat. And I already know people are getting ready to email me to tell me that it was really this reason or because it was of disease or whatever, and you don't know that. You were told that. by the same people that lie and manipulate everything. So why just repeat what you've heard? Who knows? Who knows anything? When did religious leaders start caring about health anyway? I ain't seen it. We see so many other areas where people in power want us to be sick and docile. Why wouldn't they get us confused about diet and not teach doctors about nutrition? I fucking wonder. Wow, okay, so let's just do this thing. I love you guys. I hope you love my dumb stoner self. We're going to get through this, people. So please support the show. Buy a t-shirt from Conspiracies. Click on our link to Amazon before you buy whatever you're going to buy. Here's 2 minutes with the winner of this round of the Money Bomb, Patrick, and then right on the other side, the man of the hour, Dave Asprey. How's it going, people? I'm here with Patrick from Indiana, donator of $5 and recipient of $190. We got $380 in donations this time around, so I gave half to this guy. Patrick, how's it going?
Oh, man, it's going wonderful. You know, I'm fairly new to this whole podcast thing. I've been listening to podcasts for about, a year now. And I love your show, man.
Oh, thanks. Do you mind telling the people what you do?
Yeah, actually, I work at a warehouse here in Indianapolis, but I'm also a college student in environmental science. And plan on moving out to Denver. I've got one class left, and I'll be there in the summertime.
Right on. Denver, my second favorite city.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thanks so much for donating, man. That's very cool of you. Do you have a favorite episode or favorite guest that we've had on?
Well, I'll tell you what. I really like the guys that you have on that talk about life hacking. You had Lennon, what was it? Lennon
Honor?
Oh, yeah, and Neil Kramer?
Yeah.
Great guys, and also, of course, the wonderful Duncan Trussell.
Yeah, Duncan's awesome. But is there anybody you'd like to see on or have me try to get?
You know, I'll tell you what. I came up with a list, and the first guy that came up was Edward Snowden. But I don't think that's going to be possible.
Yeah, it might be tough. But I'd love to talk to that guy.
For sure. But there's a couple other guys that I like to listen to, and I was curious. I don't know, what your connections are, but there's a guy an author, Robert Greene. Yeah, he wrote the book Mastery. There's also, I wrote down a guy, Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, Jesse Ventura. I'd like to get him. Some people think he's a bit of a bullshitter. He's definitely one of the biggest names in conspiracy, so it wouldn't be right to not try to get him on the show.
Exactly. And I wrote down two other guys. One is a singer-songwriter, Michael Franti, from the band Spearhead.
Not familiar. I'll look them up.
Yeah, he's from San Fran. He travels a lot, so I don't know. But he's he's all about positivity and
positive energy.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then there's also another author who does a podcast as well. His name is Scott Sigler.
Scott Sigler. Not familiar with him either.
He's been on Joe Rogan podcast 2 times now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. He does sci-fi horror.
Cool, man. Well, I'll definitely consider those people. I'll look into them. I'm glad this worked out. Thanks for listening. Before I let you go, do you have any plans for the money and all?
Oh, you bet I do, man. I don't feel like I really deserved this win. So what I plan on doing is stopping by, obviously, your shop and picking up a THC shirt.
Oh, wow.
Really like the sheep suit. And then also Sure Design T-shirts. Also, there's through the Drunken Dallas podcast, there's a type of loan you can give to people out there that you give them this money and they tell you what they need the money for, and then they try to pay it back. It's through Kiva, and so I think that would be a good place to put some of this money.
Nice.
And then, man, honestly, I'm going to reinvest it back into your show.
Oh shit.
That's man, cool. I feel like this money's yours, and it's really truly kind of you to to share. No, it's a good deed, man.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again. Take care. Best of luck to you.
All right. Thank you very much, man.
All right, people, as you know, I like to tackle the topic of alternative health from time to time, but historically those shows don't really tell us much we haven't heard before. They usually tell us to eat a raw, plant-based food diet, and folks, to me, I just don't see that happening in my life. But today's guest, Dave Asprey, has forged his own path to human optimization, spending 15 years and $300,000 on a mission to biohack his own body and mind for maximum efficiency. With this multi-pronged approach, Dave has lost 100 pounds, raised his IQ by 20 points, and lowered his biological age in the process of fine-tuning his diet, sleep schedule, exercise, and cognitive function. He's the founder of the growing trend called Bulletproof Coffee, and many more products and ideas to help you check yourself before you wreck yourself. The man with the plan, the bulletproof executive himself. Dave Asprey, how the hell are you?
Greg, great introduction, man. I'm good.
Oh, man, this is a real treat. Thanks for taking the time for THC. I know you got a lot on your plate. I also have to say thanks for being cool enough to send me some of the Bulletproof coffee beans and your upgraded MCT oil. I've never really been a coffee drinker, and I'm always dragging in the morning. I usually go for a soda or an energy drink, pretty much the worst possible options, but the past few weeks I've been making the Bulletproof concoction. I'd say I definitely feel like I have a more clear-headed, leveled-out energy. It definitely curbs my appetite, which I didn't think could be done. So you've made me a believer in the formula for sure.
Oh, thanks, man. That says a lot, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So to start us out, give the people a bit of an overview of the whole upgraded Bulletproof philosophy. I mean, what makes it different from the more conventional ideas of health and most other health gurus' ideas that they're pushing?
I don't really even talk about health very often. It's not a focus. The only people who care about health are people who are dying. And that means they're young and sick, like I was, 15 years ago, or they're old and they see that the end is near and they start getting really interested in health. That's bad timing. So yeah. I talk about performance. I talk about feeling good, and health just comes along with it as like a free benefit. The same thing as having abs, even if you're not really trying to have abs. When you eat for consciousness, when you eat to turn your prefrontal cortex on all the way, when you eat to reduce inflammation in your body, not because it's healthy and because it's plant-based and then you didn't eat anything with a face, but you do that because you eat in the right way. And actually that isn't the way to do it, but you basically eat in the most perfect way you know of to make your brain on all the time so you're in charge of yourself. And when you do that, your ability to meditate goes through the roof. Your ability to pay attention to anything you want to, whether it's pay attention to nothing and the Zen state, stuff. I do a lot of work with meditation with my clients and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Or whether it's, pay attention to your job or, your significant other, whatever it is you want to be better at doing, you can pick a lifestyle for that. But if you're focusing on health, it's almost like you're looking backwards and being kind of timid and fearful. That's not how I roll. I've been sick. I weighed 300 pounds. I had Lyme disease and chronic toxic mold exposure, chronic fatigue syndrome, arthritis in my knees when I was 14, ADD, Jesus. Asperger's. Like, seriously, I was a total wreck. You hit 300 pounds in your early 20s. That'll teach you a few things about life, especially when I walk around now. I'm 41, and I look better than just about every other 40-year-old that I know. I'm pretty darn muscular. I haven't lifted anything heavy in 4 months. I've run some electricity across my body here and there, but I work out less, I sleep less, I eat more calories than almost all of my peers, and I'm looking pretty damn good. I'm really pleased with life, and it's amazing to be able to pay attention all day, every day, more so than people 10, 15 years younger than me. So I'm kicking ass and taking names.
Right on, man. Yeah, it sounds like a dream come true. Let's go through some of these different pieces of the pie for total optimization. I mean, starting with food and diet. I mean, I pretty much live in a fast food diet life based on the amount of listener requests I get for 2X and 3X sizes of our t-shirts. I think a lot of the audience might be in that same boat. I've never really gained weight from it, so I haven't been aggressive about changing it. But now that I've started looking into it, I'm thinking it's going to cost me maybe 2 or 3 times as much financially to really do this right. And a lot of people are broke living on that drive-through diet of $1 burgers. I mean, what are some of the changes in diet, that would make the biggest difference, the best bang for the buck for people?
All right. This is going to come as a total non sequitur, but it's $3 for half a pound of grass-fed butter, which has fats in it that your body needs to make hormones, needs to make cell membranes, needs to make brains. You want to have your testosterone where it should be, then this is what you want to do. So, I don't know, I can easily eat I can eat a quarter pound of butter, half of like a double-sized stick, or 1 stick of butter in a day. In fact, I do that quite a lot because 70% of my calories come from fat. But let me tell you, if you have that Bulletproof coffee concoction you talked about, which is coffee made with low toxin beans, grass-fed butter, and this extractive coconut oil, you'll spend, about maybe $1. That's your breakfast. And you will not be hungry for 6 hours or longer. When lunchtime comes, you can go to the fast food place, but you don't live on a dollar burger. You buy 2 of the $1 burgers and order fries and an extra large soda. You're spending $5 or $6. In fact, if you look at the financial reports from McDonald's, they'll tell you what the average spend at McDonald's is, and it's not $1. Right.
Right.
It's
yeah.
five,
No.
It's $5 to $9 is probably what people spend depending on what they order. Do you buy that? I don't know. I haven't been to McDonald's in 10 years, but I'm just.
Yeah. No. For me, I mean, I am spending $10 sometimes at the drive-through, but when I go to grocery shopping, I feel like if I really am getting things that are organic or grass-fed meats, I feel like I'm definitely paying a premium.
Yeah, but if you go to the grocery store and you buy non-organic, non-grass-fed, you're paying the same amount or less than McDonald's, right? I mean, a bag of rice, bag of beans, a bag of frozen chicken parts that are still more intact and better than the ones you paid for in those McNuggets. You're kind of winning already because you didn't eat all the margarine and trans fats and all the other MSG and MSG analogs that you're getting. And you could say, well, who cares? And it's not affecting me. I look good. The thing is, it affects your blood sugar levels and it affects your cognition. So you want to be able to pay attention all day long. I guarantee you that if you eat, say, a low inflammation thing like the Bulletproof diet, which isn't terribly expensive. I mean, you can eat eggs, which are just about dirt cheap. Organic is better, but you know what? Non-organic eggs are still pretty darn good on the overall scheme of things. So you can have a lot of eggs, a lot of butter, a little bit of white rice, and some vegetables. You want to be cheap? Buy the frozen vegetables. They're actually probably better for you than the fresh ones that have been sitting there for a week in transit anyway. Ditch the fruit. Ditch the dessert, and all of a sudden you're like, ate a lot of calories today. I ate maybe less variety of food than I did before. I ate a sweet potato today, which cost 35 cents, and I put 20 cents worth of butter on it. Like, we're not talking about spending a ton of money. And grass-fed beef, it's $5 a pound, and eat a half a pound of it. That's $2.50. It's not as expensive as people make it out to be. It's if you're going to get fancy and buy, the truffled butter from Normandy and stuff like that, picked by one-armed monks. You don't need that to be healthy or high performance. It just tastes better.
For sure, man. I mean, let's talk about the Bulletproof diet because I love the little one sheet you have on the website. I think it's really well spelled out. What's different about it than most conventional diets that people are talking about? For me, I see you got oil and fats on there that you're getting, 5 to 9 servings of oils and fats and then 4 to 9 of proteins. I mean, a lot of people don't put that in their diets in this alternative health world, So that's kind of interesting. Is that pretty much primarily for the cognitive function?
Cognitive function, hormonal health. And all right, this is going to also fly in the face of what we've been taught. But if you have a race car, do you put low octane gas in it? Or do you have that special high octane gas on that special truck that's 109 octane?
Right. Of course, you need the good fuel.
Octane is a measure of calories per ounce or calories per whatever volume, right? Why do cars go faster when they have more calories per ounce of fuel? Because it burns cleaner and it burns better. And what we're talking about doing in the human body, this is going to be astounding. When you eat a calorie, it's not something that makes you fat. A calorie is something that fuels your body to move and to think. And up to 25% of your calories are consumed by your brain. And when you eat more calories, you move more. And when I say move more, you feel more like going for a walk. But also when you sit on the couch, you cross your legs one way to the other more often, and you wiggle a little bit more, and you scratch yourself. And you actually, this is well established by science. You move more when you eat more. You move less when you eat less. When you eat more, you actually get warmer, which is good for your metabolism. When you eat less, you're a little bit colder. Your body will automatically adjust the amount of calories it burns by providing energy with them. If you think you're going to lose weight by eating less calories and exercising more to burn them, what you're doing is you're telling your body, there's a tiger chasing me because whatever brain is in charge of this body is making me exercise when I don't have enough food. So there's a famine and there's a tiger chasing me. I think it's panic time. And when it's panic time, these environmental signals, this is not your conscious brain. This is the cells in your body, the systems there to keep all mammals and even reptiles alive. They go into panic mode. When they go into panic mode, they change the expression of your genes through something called epigenetics. you actually change to reflect the environment that you play back to yourself. And you end up putting your cells in something in my first book we call protection mode or survival mode. And what you really want to be in is in thriving mode, which is when you send your body the signal that the environment isn't too stressful and there's plenty of food and it's really high quality food. When you do that, your genetic expression changes, your testosterone goes up, your cortisol goes down, your attention span goes up, you feel really good, and you have mental and physical abilities that you didn't have before because your body stopped getting ready to fight the tiger or to starve and survive during a famine and got ready to start growing, putting on muscle, getting rid of excess fat, and basically making you look and feel the way that you want to look and feel. So who would have thought egg yolks, butter, and steak could do it a lot more than tofu and sticks and twigs? But as a guy who's a former raw vegan, former plant-based I've tried vegetarian diets and everything else. I worked out an hour and a half a day and 6 days a week, and I ate a low-calorie diet, about 1,800 calories a day, for a year and a half, and I didn't lose a pound. I still weighed 300 pounds. I was strong, but I was fat. And now I'm strong, I'm not fat, and I eat way more calories. I mean, Greg.
It sounds wild, man.
When my son was born, my second son, if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about, you're not going to sleep anyway when you have a new baby. It's just not even going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I decided, all right, I've got a new job. I'm a vice president at a big company. I'm also going to start this blog, the Bulletproof Executive. It's now the #1 ranked health podcast. Like 1 million people a month come to the site, and it's like in the top 5,000 websites in the US. And I'm like amazingly grateful that people are so interested in this stuff about increasing human performance. But I did that. I ate 4,000 calories a day, sometimes 4,500. I slept 5 hours or less every single night, and I stopped all exercise, and I did it for 2 years straight. My original plan was to do it for like 60 days. I'm like, I'll gain a pound, and then I can write this blog post about how, I should have gained 18 pounds according to the math, and I only gained 1 pound. What I didn't expect is that I would grow a 6-pack, and I did. And the only 6-pack I've ever posted on the internet is that one photo I took in like the bathroom mirror. Because honestly, I'm a geek. I'm not into like, look at my abs. So I'm like, all right, this is just evidence, guys. So how did that happen?
Yeah.
The bottom line is the number of calories you eat is those don't get burned off like a machine. And at least 50% of your calorie use has nothing to do with moving and exercise. So,
well, I was going to say that's one of the things that really interests me about the Bulletproof Way is there's not a lot of emphasis on long, intense workout sessions. I mean, tell us what to do there. I mean, how did that 6-pack develop? Is it all just mainly, if it's not exercise, it must be diet.
Oh, probably 90% of how you look is diet.
Interesting.
And the kind of exercise that is most effective in the least amount of time is not those stupid long cardio sessions I used to torture myself with. Those things raise your stress levels. They teach your heart to beat less efficiently, and they're generally not very good for you. What you should do instead, and what I do now sometimes, although right now I'm using only electricity, which is kind of a biohack in and of itself, but you can actually work out for 15 minutes once a week and get more benefit than working out for an hour a day every day.
Wow.
And that sounds crazy. I'm just quoting the work here of Doug McGuff, who's a physician, a practicing physician, I think in an emergency room. And he's an exercise physiologist who wrote a book called Body by Science. I've interviewed him on my show, and he actually has the Bulletproof Diet on his fridge, that same infographic you were talking about. By the way, it's free. I'm not selling anything, but if you want to check it out, bulletproofdietbook.com, go there, download the infographic at no cost. And it's professionally designed. It tells you the entire diet on one page that sticks to your fridge. Mm-hmm. So Doug's work is, hey, how do you get the most benefit in the least amount of time? And what you do is 5 exercises at maximum weight, and the total workout is 15 minutes. The problem is at the end of the workout, you should be dead. You lift things as heavy as it's humanly possible. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. And you get the maximum hormonal response in the least amount of time. And then you recover for the rest of the week. And maybe a week later, you, instead of going for a run, you sprint for 1 minute, or better yet, do it for 400 meters, and then you rest for a minute while walking, and then you do it again, and you rest, and you do it again, rest. And what'll happen is you'll throw up. You can't do that for 15 minutes. All right. But
Yeah.
you only do it 3 times, and then you're like, I can't do it anymore. My lungs are going to burst. And then you rest for a week. And what happens? Your body recovers. If you do that every day, all your body does is get stressed and say, oh my God, something's probably trying to kill me. I better get ready. And you don't get the benefits. So it's all about recovery. It's not about the exercise. It's about the not exercise. And it's about fueling yourself during recovery. So you eat this amazing high fat, creamy diet where no vegetable exists for any reason but to absorb butter and other healthy fats. And you eat a lot of vegetables, a ton of vegetables actually, but they're always with fat. And you eat a moderate amount of super high quality protein like eggs, grass-fed steak, lamb, fish, not farmed fish. And when you do that, you don't spend much on the fat because this butter is affordable. Coconut oil is good for you. The extracted coconut oil that I use, brain octane, is 18 times stronger than coconut oil. So if you put even like a teaspoon or 2 of that in, you feel it in your brain, and it lasts quite a long time. Mm-hmm. So like there's all these techniques to really, really push what you're doing. They don't cost a lot of money, but you feel it first in your head, and then you just, oh, I needed new pants. Isn't that convenient? But you weren't trying. There was no struggle. There was no willpower. Screw willpower. You only have so much of it. Don't waste it on your food.
Yeah, man. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about clearing that mental fog. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it. That usually comes with a lack of energy and poor diet. I know with all the weed and alcohol that I'm taking in, I'm usually walking around operating at maybe a C- level, I'd usually say. But for people who want to really improve that cognitive function, sharpen their focus, what have you found to be the best tools?
For sharpening cognitive focus, I'm sorry to sound like a broken record here. Bulletproof Coffee is my number one thing to go to. It's those 3 ingredients: the upgraded coffee beans without the toxins. Like most coffee, you drink it, you feel good, and then you crash. I don't want the crash because that's what brings on the fog, especially for me with my background of like having lots of brain fog. So I'm kind of careful about the quality there. And then lots of fat. You blend that in a blender. It has to be blended or it doesn't work. And it needs to be grass-fed butter, not margarine or something. And this $3 for half a pound. It's not expensive. Kerrygold brand is available at almost every store. Mm-hmm. And then you do that and you put in the brain octane oil and you feel good for hours and hours and the brain fog is gone. And if that doesn't work, what you want to do is you want to go out there and really take a look at, how you feel when you do that and say, okay, I rocked it with natural ingredients and it wasn't everything I expected. And then I don't have a problem with pharmaceuticals in the slightest. One of the areas where I've written a lot about and something I've used almost every day for 15 years is smart drugs. Mm-hmm. Not just, ginkgo and things like that, although I'm happy to use those. And I have some on my site that I recommend. But I actually am talking about pharmaceuticals, things like piracetam and aniracetam. And I've been quoted in like Rolling Stone and Men's Health talking about the pharmaceutical side of that. And the big gun is something called modafinil or Provigil.
Yes.
And, I've CNN interviewed me and ABC Nightline sent a camera crew to my house because I was like one of the only Silicon Valley executives willing to talk about this openly. And I have for 10 years. I'm like, yeah, I took Provigil for like 8 years straight. Almost every day. And this is, if you've seen Limitless, the movie,
yeah,
I'm telling you, the cameraman, the producer, they all tried Provigil. They never told me that. I don't know them, but I know because when you take Provigil, color saturation increases. Like Christmas lights are more intense when you're on Provigil. Oh yeah, like there's a subtle change in just the hue of all colors. Everything is more intense. You can pay attention to so much more.
Wow.
So I lived in that state for 8 years, and I can tell you in that movie, when the guy takes the drug, like the colors change. Like, yep, they tried the closest thing we have to the Limitless drug.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a prescription drug, correct?
Unless you have the internet.
Well, I've I've heard a couple of people buying it through the internet, of course, and I have no problem doing that. But I've heard that a lot of the times people are getting it, they're from unreputable sources. They're thinking they're not getting the real deal. I don't know, but I'm sure on your website you have some links to possible options for people.
I I've bought it online and tested it. I tested it by using it, not by sending it to a lab. And I know the feeling of real modafinil very well. The sample that I tried just a few years ago, it was legit. It was from India manufacturing. A lot of the stuff is. No doubt there's some stuff out there that isn't the same thing. And there's a risk from doing that. The good thing is there's lots of discussions online, including some of them on my site, where people talk about, I tried it and it worked. I tried it, it didn't work. And so, there is a risk there. It's unlikely they're going to be putting rat poison in there.
Right.
Because there's actually rat poison is more expensive than sugar. Like they'll send you sugar pills. So you can also taste it. Once you've had a real Provigil, it has a flavor and you could detect that with your tongue. So it's not a super risky proposition, but it is better to get a prescription. If you go to bulletproofexec.com, the blog, I actually have a discussion there about what you need to tell your physician to explain that you have an insurable requirement for Provigil. And there's a couple things. Narcolepsy is what it was originally for, if you have that. But shift work or sleep disorder is a terrible problem. Your job requires you to take phone calls and to travel to different time zones in the middle of the night. And you have to do it all night. And then you're really tired and you're a zombie and you have all these symptoms that Wikipedia told you. And, more than a few people have a prescription that way.
Right.
It's also used to treat ADD. It's an off-label use, but it's very commonly used if you have ADD. I think it's far safer than Adderall, given what I understand about the pharmacology of both of them. That said, I am not on it right now. About 2 years ago, when I first went on the Joe Rogan show, a bunch of, even though I've been on national TV twice talking about it, a bunch of people are like, well, you didn't disclose that you use it. I'm like, what? I don't know what kind of disclosure other than like national TV twice you're expecting, but all right. In my blogs about it, but yes, I use it. So I went off of it just to for a month to see. And what I found was with the latest tweaks in the Bulletproof diet, and as long as I'm using the brain octane oil and I've got my coffee, I'm good to go. Like I travel with it. I keep it with me. I might use it if I'm going over 10 time zones or something and going to give a talk, but it's become something that is now like an optional Swiss Army kind of tool thing rather than a daily practice for me.
Right on. Yeah, I'm really interested in trying that because I'm pretty dense. Those kind of nootropics and supplements, they don't do a whole lot for me usually, but I definitely might check that out. I mean, if I can figure out how to get a weed card, I should be able to figure out how to get a prescription for Provigil. I also heard you talk about EEG-based neurofeedback. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I've had my own EEG machine since 1997, circa. I could be plus or minus 1 year. Mm-hmm. And you can play your brainwaves back to yourself, and you can consciously teach your brain to do tricks, things that it doesn't naturally know how to do. And there's two different kind of flavors of this kind of feedback. One of them is that your brain is the most self-optimizing organ in the body. Your brain's job is to figure out how stuff works and make it better. The problem is there's no nerves inside your brain. Actually, that's not true. There's one nerve. It comes from your back molars. It's called the fifth cranial nerve, but it's not a very useful nerve. So if you cut your arm, your body's like, oh, nerves told me I was hurt, so let me fix that. Mm-hmm. And then a repair process kicks off. When the brain is hurt or when it's just working ineffectively without any actual damage, well, it doesn't know because all of the sensory things you have point outwards. None of them point inwards. When you hook little electrodes up your head with a bit of goop and you play it through a computer, and what comes out of the computer is a sound that's tied to the state of your brain. And your brain will automatically recognize that that sound is like a mirror. And without you consciously needing to do anything, you can influence the brain to become more effective and to pay attention better and to let go of patterns that aren't helping you. That's pretty profound. But the area where I've focused my time and something I bring some senior executives that I coach through is a program called 40 Years of Zen. And this is the single most impactful thing I've done out of $300,000 spent on upgrading myself.
Wow.
It's called 40 Years of Zen because in 7 very intense days, I don't know anyone who hasn't either cried or thrown up or both during those 7 days. You basically have a lie detector hooked up to your head, telling you when you're deceiving yourself about anything.
Oh,
So
no.
all of your internal dialogues that are not serving you, it's like, oh, I'm lying there. And when you realize that you're lying and there's no way to squirm out of it because you've got a computer telling you, you have to face things and fix them.
Oh,
And
God.
what you get in those 7 days is the same brain waves as someone who's done 20 to 40 years of daily Zen practice. An advanced Zen meditator. It takes many years to get there. And you can measure their brain. It's a definable pattern where alpha starts in a part of the brain and these two hemispheres are synchronized, and you can do it in 7 days. And the side effects of this, I'm not kidding about this. There's a study, 12 IQ points and a 50% increase in creativity.
What? Wow, that's pretty crazy, man. 7 days. So elaborate a little bit. You're hooked up to a computer. How does it work exactly?
Well, what we've done is we've measured the brainwaves of advanced meditators, Zen masters.
Yeah.
Like, what do they all have in common that other people don't have when they're in a state of meditation? It's a mathematical signature, like a 3D picture of which parts of the brain light up in which ways at what time. And we put 8 electrodes on your head in carefully measured spots. And those electrodes are getting the electricity that comes out of the brain. Like they actually capture the signal. They run it through a little amplifier that sends it into a computer. The computer analyzes the signal and then takes that signal. And if you're doing it right, it plays a musical tone. And if you're not doing it, you hear nothing. So you sit there and it's quiet. And then you get frustrated and go, damn it. Why do I hear nothing? I'm a failure. I can't even do my Zen thing, which in and of itself is funny because that's the opposite of what a Zen meditator would do. Right. But then after a little while, you realize, wait, something made it make a noise. What did I do? And I'll do more of that. And you just go down that process. And after a day or two, you realize that, visualizing nice imagery and breathing and all the things you can do to raise your alpha waves, they only get you so far. And there's a number you can look at. Is the number getting bigger every time? Is it falling? And you realize you're stuck. And that's when you basically are going to have a really bad day because the lie detector stuff kicks in and you realize, actually what you realize is there's all sorts of reasons you shouldn't be there. And this is your internal self-defense systems trying to get you out of there because they don't want you to pay attention to what you're doing at the very lowest levels inside your body. Mm-hmm. And you sit there and you basically overcome your own objections and you realize the things you're doing that aren't serving you or other people. And at the end of the day, you spend the following several days recognizing grudges that you hold and practicing forgiveness, which is total hippie talk, right? Forgiveness, whatever. But forgiveness isn't about telling someone you're sorry, which is what most people believe it is because, your mom made you say you were sorry when you hit your friend. What we're talking about here is stop carrying other people's baggage. So, someone did something mean to you, whether your boss fired you, your spouse left you, whatever it is, you're pissed off about it. And you're probably pissed off about 10,000 things that you don't even remember. And when you're sitting there with a lie detector, you can remember them and you can repattern those unconscious responses you have. And so I'm 6'4", I'm a big guy. If a big guy who looked kind of like me beat you up when you were 7, I guarantee you when I walk into the room, your nervous system, without your permission, and before you have a chance to recognize that it's me, it will prepare you to run away or kill me. And it wastes your energy, it wastes your time, and it actually wastes your life. And you might say, yeah, that's BS. I don't feel anything. And if you don't feel anything, that's okay. It's because you don't know how to feel it. But we can measure it. We can put sensors on your skin, and you'll have very subtle changes in the electrical resistance of your skin because a fine sheen of sweat formed. Your pupils dilate. Your blink rate changes. Your respiration rate changes. You start taking in more oxygen to get ready to run or fight. And literally, we can see all this. Even your brain waves change. So if you're doing that and you don't know it, you're a chump. You need to know it. Sorry.
Yeah.
You are a modern human being in the modern world, and there are no tigers to eat you. You're not going to die. And your nervous system thinks you're going to die 100 times a day because it's running old patterns. And what we're really doing with this kind of stuff is we're sitting down and we're fixing those patterns. We're making you aware of them and then repatterning them. And when you're done, you walk out of there going, wow, I just drove home and I didn't flip anyone off. I didn't cut anyone off. that's an achievement in and of itself.
Yeah, man, that is a fascinating program. You know, now you're talking about this involves electricity. You're working out with electricity. Do you think that being around a lot of electronics and Wi-Fi routers and cell phones, we hear that from some people that that's damaging. Do you think that's true, or is that just some new age bullshit?
Oh, it's absolutely true. I've talked to some of the experts out there. I have electrical filters in my house that reduce chaotic resonance in the electrical fields of the house. And funny, the clients I work with on high performance stuff, their sleep improves when they put filters in their house. Not everyone, but a lot of them. I don't have Wi-Fi in my home office. I have this old school thing called Ethernet. It's amazing. It's like the internet comes on a wire. Like, who would have thought?
Right.
And that's not to say I don't have wireless devices. I have like 2 iPhones, an Android device, and a couple iPads and a laptop that can use Wi-Fi. I just don't expose myself to it all the time. And there's, at this point, incontrovertible evidence that these are bad for us. I also have a collection of biohacking devices that use electrical magnetic fields to improve your health, to make you heal faster, to make you make more stem cells. I'm of the relatively outspoken opinion that you can use EMFs to improve health or to reduce health. So what I'm working to do now is to bring awareness that they can be harmful, so we can start engineering our networking equipment to improve our health rather than reduce it.
Yeah.
It may sound like a big claim. Remember, I'm a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. Like some of the companies that created cloud computing, I was not just there. I was in the room when we were sketching it out. So I know a lot about the networking industry, and have worked for a variety of big networking companies from 3Com on up. So when I talk about reengineering networking, it's not idle musings of a crazy person. It's a guy who was a vice president at multiple networking companies in his career.
That's interesting, man. Like, I've heard people talk about a certain mat. I assume that's one of the devices you're talking about. How does that work exactly? It's supposed to counteract the charge or something? A grounding mat, I think, is what it's called.
Yeah, they call it an earthing mat. And I have found improvements in sleep, especially deep sleep, from being electrically grounded, especially for jet lag. Here's the problem, though. A lot of the mats plug into the wall, and so you're sharing a ground with the rest of the house, and you get a benefit from it. It improves your sleep. But I've found, after a lot of time using one of the mats and recommending it to a lot of people, that if you can spend a few minutes barefoot outdoors, it seems to work better, and I don't exactly know why. Mm-hmm. And one of the preeminent experts in electrical fields and their impacts on human health, the inventor of one of the electrical filters you can put in your house, has done some research. Starting in 1992, the U.S. allowed electrical utilities to return their electricity through the earth instead of through wires. In Europe, you basically have, we'll call it 2 wires, but the idea is one wire brings electricity in and the other one brings it out after you've used it.
Right.
And that's more expensive than this new thing that's happened since 92, where 70% of the electricity, rather than taking it back through a wire, you just dump it into the earth. And there are some serious, legitimate scientific questions around, is earthing, using one of these mats you can buy, really a good idea? Walking around barefoot helps. Earthing seems to help on a lot of things, but a lot of the experiments on earthing were done before 1992. And since that time, the amount of electricity we dump into the earth without any idea what it's doing, in the US at least, has gone up a lot. Huh. I live on an island in Canada. The ground here is pretty well grounded, given that I'm 10 minutes from the beach and I'm isolated from the mainland and all. I don't worry about it too much here, but I do wonder whether there's a very big difference in how you feel and how you perform if you're sleeping plugged into the earth somewhere near a power station or high tension power lines. All I can say is the data's out. Like there's expert heart cardiovascular people who are doing this. One of my good friends and the coach for 9 years for one of the preeminent cycling teams in the Tour de France, the guy who did the magical health hacking in the background, has literally for years used earthing as one of the ways to make pro athletes at the highest levels recover faster. The question is, you're doing that on the Tour de France, or are you doing that somewhere in the US. We don't even know, but we do know that it makes a difference. We just don't know all the variables yet.
Yeah, that stuff's kind of interesting to me because I'm around a lot of electrical equipment. I've got a whole Wi-Fi router in my bedroom, sleeping with an iPhone next to my head.
Dude, how old are you?
28.
So you're not going to like yourself in another 7 years.
7 years? I don't know if I like myself that much today.
Yeah, give yourself to you're about 35. And like, I wish I hadn't held a cell phone up to my head as much as I did. There are changes in cognitive function that we can measure from that. There's an increased risk of what's it, neuroglioma, if I remember the exact form of tumor, specifically on the right-hand side where people hold their cell phone more often.
Yeah.
So, you owe it to yourself to put your to put your phone in airplane mode and turn off your Wi-Fi router when you sleep. Believe it or not, I've had lots of clients do just that, and their sleep quality improves on a sleep monitoring system. So if you sleep deeper, you need less sleep and you get more free time. And since you weren't using your Wi-Fi, dude, you're asleep. You just don't need it.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about sleep a little bit because my sleep is awful.
Well, no wonder.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
You eat like crap and you live in a bunch of EMFs. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're telling me I know these things. I know these things. And I do want to make some changes, but I guess, there just has been no education in my life for so long about any of this kind of stuff. So it's all kind of foreign to me. And now that I'm getting older, I do want to start making some of these changes. But I've been hearing that vitamin D and sunlight is super important to sleep. I mean, I know you talk a little bit about that on your website. What's the deal there?
I'm a huge vitamin D supporter, and I read a lot about improving sleep. And one of the things you do to sleep better, get more sunlight during the day and get adequate vitamin D levels in the morning and midday. If you take vitamin D at night, it'll hurt your sleep. If you take it in the morning, it'll help your sleep. So you got to time your vitamin D. And, I'm not in the sunlight right now. I live in Canada where like the sun is only here half the time. Mm-hmm. And above where I'm recording right now, there's 1,000 watts of halogen light shining on me. I'm doing that because I want my body to know it's daytime. So when nighttime comes and I turn on the dimmer switch and I have, much less light and less blue light, which is what turns off melatonin, I'll go to sleep effortlessly. My average time to go to sleep for the past 3 years is 3 minutes. I close my eyes, I'm out.
Wow. Yeah. I definitely don't do that. I'm usually streaming something from Netflix for a couple of hours, waking up 3 or 4 times through the night, and then dragging myself out of bed, depressed and angry.
This is because you're eating foods that do that, particularly gluten.
Yeah.
Gluten will change your personality for the worse. Like you got to nail that.
Wow.
And it's not that hard to eat white rice instead of, bread. It's not particularly more or less expensive either. It's just a choice to make. And when you get rid of gluten and get rid of MSG, get rid of hydrogenated fat and probably corn syrup, your sleep is just thousands of times better. And if you turn off the Wi-Fi and all, you wake up and you don't feel like a zombie. You kind of feel ready to kick some ass. And I went from feeling like a zombie all the time, really to the point that I bought like insurance because I was afraid I wouldn't even be able to work for too long.
No.
And I mean, I was
Wow.
getting like into the day. I'm like, I don't really know what I did today. I don't feel like I was productive. I don't remember half my meetings and I'm just too tired to do anything. I'm barely going to make it home. I used to drive by Braille. I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but my brain was so just thwacked from eating the wrong stuff and not understanding all this. Sometimes on the commute home, I wasn't asleep, but I wasn't exactly very conscious. And, you kind of get tunnel vision and you're sort of, not sleeping, but not really paying attention.
Yeah.
I can't believe I never, ran into anyone. And that state is so opposite of the way I live my life today. I despise it and I won't allow it. And I have all these crazy tools at my disposal to make sure that it doesn't happen. But when you eat clean, the way I'm talking about, just avoiding the common things that cause inflammation in your brain, it doesn't take any effort. You just feel good. You can pay attention to something that's boring or not boring, train the brain to not flop around all the time. And like, it's amazing what you can do and how you can feel.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you about things to boost the immune system. I mean, because I don't really get sick a lot, but I do have really bad sinuses. So I guess it's kind of like I'm barely sick all the time. And I've just sort of learned to live with it or accept it as like allergies. People talk about having allergies and that almost makes it seem like something you can't fix. But do you think this kind of stuff could be from something like, of course, bad diet, but toxins or mold and poor quality foods?
Depending on your genetics, You can have really strong autoimmune reactions to mold, or it could just make you a little bit sick. I had chronic sinus problems for 15 years.
Yeah, that's me.
I mean, I was strep throat, had my tonsils out when I was 16. Then I had sinusitis. I was on antibiotics every month.
Wow.
And so, yeah, you're probably eating a food you're allergic to. If I had to guess, I'd say gluten. If it's not gluten, it's probably dairy protein. If that's not it, it's either soy or eggs. It's predictable. You could also like get a blood test for $300 and figure it out, or you could download a free application that I put out there. It's called Food Sense, and you check your heart rate in the morning. Just put your thumb on the back of your flash on your iPhone, and
What?
oh yeah,
That's
it just
awesome.
It's cool, and then you do it before and after each meal, and it'll tell you if you ate a food that was kryptonite for you in that meal, just based on what your heart rate does.
Oh shit.
And that's really cool. It's free. Okay. Like I'm not trying to sell anything here. I'm just like, this is amazing research from like, I think 35 years ago, Dr. Broda, or Broca, I'm forgetting exactly whether it's a C or D in their name. Anyway, this test is well known. The problem is that there was just not sensors to let people do this. So now it's all in an app, and you can tell the app, I ate, meat, I ate, gluten, I ate whatever. And pretty soon you'll get a pattern that's like, when I eat this, my heart rate goes up enough to tell me I just ate something that was kryptonite. And if you avoid those things, your sinuses clear up, your brain clears up, your skin clears up, your sleep improves. And you're like, funny, I didn't realize that one thing was jacking my entire day and my entire night because I was eating it without knowing.
Yeah.
I mean, God, I just wish I had known that gluten gave me road rage and kind of made me a jerk all the time. And brain fog too, right?
Bread and meat, I mean, basically burgers and fried foods is almost my whole diet. You're making me feel like I'm dying here.
Well, you are, and you're not uncommon.
No, I know.
Most people, until they hit 30, just completely grind themselves into a pulp.
Yeah.
And they do that because like, hey, I feel pretty good. I'm unfortunate that, I didn't last until I was 30. I started having really severe problems in my early 20s. But then you have to dig out of a hole, and you probably don't really feel it until you're like about 33, 35. And you're like, man, I can't really drink like I used to. It takes me a couple of days to recover. And like, I got an extra 20 pounds. I never gained weight till I hit 32. And, you don't know this, but your testosterone levels started to decline. Your growth hormone levels started to decline. Your insulin resistance finally hit you. And you're like, God, I never had a problem, but I got a little gut now, but that's all right. I can just suck it in. And all of a sudden you realize, you're 20, 30 pounds overweight. You're tired all the time, and, you have more career stress. And you got to dig your way out. And it's a lot of work. I dug myself out of 100 pounds. But wouldn't it just be easier if you didn't let it happen in the first place? Not because you're afraid of getting old and all that, but just because even though you're 22 or 28 or however old you are, you just want to feel good all the time and kick ass. And you want to have a really good job. And when you're done with the job, you want to, go out with your friends, or you want to go to school and learn something more, or you want to travel and hike, whatever it is that makes you happy. If you're too tired and foggy to do that, and you wake up in the morning and can barely move, like, what's it all about? And I just realized that no one ever told me that when I was 16. And if I'd known half of what I know now, my life would have been a lot more comfortable and very different. And I'd probably be much more successful than I am today. And I'm grateful that I'm pretty damn successful. So I thought I would maybe write that down and give it away for free. And that's my blog, right? And it's grown dramatically in just the last 3 years, because like that level of knowledge, what I learned from spending $300,000 and in 15 years of studying all these things and trying them and interviewing experts. I run an anti-aging research group called Silicon Valley Health Institute. For 20 years, every month we bring in an expert to talk about aging and how the body works and how to improve performance. And the videos are all online for free, svhi.com. Like, this is the way you give back, but it's also the way I learned. So all these guys taught me stuff. I used it on myself, and now I write about it, and it helps others.
Yeah, man, I'm really enjoying it for sure. Let me ask you about marijuana usage. Of course, there's a lot of smokers out in the audience. I probably do it too much. I could definitely cut that back a little bit. But how do you feel like that affects health all that much? I mean, because I feel like it helps me a lot creatively. I just enjoy it. It's part of just a daily ritual. Is there anything I should be doing to counteract any negative effects of it or supplement with something else?
How do you take it?
Oh, I smoke it. I know that's probably the worst way.
That's the problem. It's not the pot, it's the burning crap going into your lungs. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's tobacco, pot, sage, or garbage. Smoke is bad for your body. It increases carbon monoxide, oxidative stress, all these bad things. So if you're going to do it, you can vape it.
Yeah.
You can eat it, which is probably the way I would prefer.
It's not as fun to eat it.
I guess it depends on what you put it on.
Well, that's true.
um, it's one of those things. Even just using a water bong, it is going to take some of that crap out.
Right.
So it's not the pot; it's the mechanism of action there. And I think pot's a double-edged sword, right? THC is going to raise your alpha brainwaves. By the way, that's what I do in 40 years of Zen. The thing is, you're reliant on the drug to raise them. So you get the creative state, but then you want to go back, you use more of the drug. But if the drug isn't causing aging and cancer the way any other burning substance in your lungs does, then okay, who the heck cares? Like, people drink coffee, they drink alcohol, and somehow that's okay, but pot's not. Completely makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So, in fact, if I had my say, if I had to pick, I would say make alcohol illegal and make pot legal, because it would absolutely help society in so many different ways. That said, I don't really think either of them should be legal, but I don't drink because why would I? Have lots of more fun things to do.
Yeah.
I'm not a straight edge, people who drink are bad. I'm just when I drink, I don't feel good. And I got tired of not feeling good. I did enough of that when I was young. So when I drink, it's Bulletproof Coffee.
For sure.
Give me 2 shots of espresso and I'll party, but why 2 shots of vodka? I don't know.
Yeah. I definitely don't drink all that much anymore. I think that's way worse than the marijuana. At least for my chemistry, it jacks me up a whole lot. But I've been trying to make better choices in the beverage department because it's an easy one. And I'm trying to choose things that aren't soda and energy drinks. And I've been hearing a lot of people advocating kombucha as a good probiotic beverage choice, but it's pretty low on your bulletproof diet. Is that not a great option in your opinion?
It depends on what's in the kombucha. And there's 5 different kinds of antibiotics we don't really know about. They haven't even been researched. So you look at this stuff, it does have some good bacteria in it. It also can have, depending on who made it and what it is, it can have brewer's or baker's yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, that's called. That's not good for you. If it's Saccharomyces boulardii, it may be good for you depending on your allergies. So what I'd say is I use it on occasion from vendors. I used to grow it myself too. And a lot of home fermented foods are just not safe because we've changed the fungal biome of the planet. We've done this by spraying pesticides around that cause X-Men level mutation in soil microbes. Huh. And for 30 years, every 20 minutes, there's another generation of these things. And they make 500 or 1,000 times more toxins now than they used to. And some of them make toxins they never used to make. And you just don't know what's growing in that bottle of kombucha. And if it's not laboratory controlled and tested, I wouldn't drink it. If it's made from a reputable vendor with really good quality control and it agrees with you and you measure it on Food Sense, or you look at, can I meditate after I drink that? Do I really feel good? Am I itchy? Am I puffy? Do I have more, muffin top the next day? And you check it out and you're like, all right, this stuff agrees with me and I'm good with it. I don't have a problem. But most of the stuff out there, it's hit or miss for every single person. It's very individual. So I'm not opposed to it. I just consider it a high risk food. It's not always bad. Nothing on the bulletproof diet is bad. Just these are the ones that are probably going to cause problems. And these are the ones that very rarely do. And it's a spectrum. I'm not telling you eat this way, don't eat that way. I'm saying if you make a choice moving more to the left on the infographic, you'll probably feel better and have less inflammation.
For sure.
But if you love the cheesecake, dude, have the cheesecake. You're still on the bulletproof diet. You just ate an inflammatory food and now you want to whack it. How do you whack it? Whack it with some of this coconut charcoal and increase your liver output. It's all hackable. You just have to decide, first, what is the cost of eating a food that causes inflammation? How does it change how I feel? How does it change my experience of the world? Once you get that, you're in good shape.
Yeah. I really just don't think I've done a good enough job of breaking that down. How I feel versus what I'm eating. I mean, I know in a broad sense, yes, but I like the way you break it down by food item. The Bulletproof Diet infographic is pretty sweet. It's like a ladder, a ladder of, this is better than this is better than this. And I think that's helpful because I know I'm not going to choose the best option all the time. But something you mentioned earlier, that I never really thought about is I can't really meditate. And I never really equated that to diet. I've just kind of thought, oh, well, unless I'm really going to take hours and hours to sit aside, I'm not going to get it. But yeah, maybe it has to do with diet and just mental function altogether.
It does. And it also has to do with your language. And one of the things that you become really hyper aware of when you've trained your brain like me is words have meaning, and your body is too stupid to sort out what you meant to say versus what you actually said.
Mm-hmm.
So you said, I can't meditate. And I'll call bullshit on that. You can meditate. You just haven't learned, and you do it wrong, right? But you can.
Yeah.
So well, you could say, I haven't learned how to do it yet, or I suck at it, and I'll give you those. But you can. So once you do that, that changes your capability set. In fact, there's studies, good studies, that show that you can raise your intelligence only if you believe it's possible to raise your intelligence. If you take kids and you tell them you cannot get smarter, they cannot get smarter. If you tell them they can get smarter and you give them exactly the same training as the other ones, they get smarter. So what you're saying there is when you try to meditate, it hasn't worked for you. And all right, I get it. And it's because your brain is really having a hard time biochemically focusing. And if you want to meditate and you haven't addressed the underlying biomechanics of it, like you have the wrong fuel or not enough, or you have things like MSG getting in the way, of course it's going to be hard to meditate. So the reason that I do the bulletproof diet really is because when you turn off inflammation and you fuel the brain right, everyone can meditate better. You can be more conscious of your actions. And when you do that, you're less of a dick to everyone around you. So if we're all less dicky to each other because our brains work better because we ate good food, then the world's more fun to live in, and that's cool.
Yeah. No, you're right. That language thing is kind of in line with the placebo effect. It's the power of thought is incredibly powerful. I should use that knowledge to a benefit of mine. I don't, but I should. You also have a section of the Upgraded Exec website, the Bulletproof Exec website, a sex section, and of course, sex should be a staple of any well-rounded, healthy life. What can you tell us about upgraded sex? Are we talking about tantric sex or monks who have these 10-hour sustained orgasms? Is this a road you've traveled down?
There's a great talk. The Huffington Post wrote it up. I direct people to the website to check it out. But the short version of it is I tested the tantric equations for guys that looks at your age and says there's an equation for your age, and all that details are on the site. And it tells you how frequently a guy should ejaculate. And if you ejaculate more frequently than that, then you age more quickly and you're weak. And if you ejaculate that number like that infrequently or even wait longer, then you'll live longer and have more energy. I'm like, sounds like BS to me, but I'll give it a shot. So for about a year, I ran a series of tests. My number is 8. So I should be, as a 41-year-old, I should have an ejaculation once every 8 days. That's not saying sex every 8 days. You can have sex all you want. You just don't finish. Yeah. So I tracked my satisfaction with life on a daily basis and frequency of sex, frequency of orgasm. And funny enough, there's a very clear orgasm hangover for guys. You ejaculate the next day, you're not as happy with life. Your boss is a jerk. Your girlfriend or wife or whatever is just not that interesting, and like you're kind of blah. And like we've known this forever. Napoleon Hill writes about it. Monks write about it. Tantric sex writes about it. Like it's kind of something that guys just don't talk about anymore. And we have this like hypersexualized. We all look at porn and mess with our dopamine sensitivity. But the bottom line is, if you don't have as many orgasms as you're having now, you'll have a lot more energy and you'll have a lot more sex. Because when you don't orgasm, the next day you're like, dude, let's get it on. Whereas if you just kind of have orgasms all over the place, you sort of lose your edge. So I found that the tantric equation held very nicely. And if I had sex as much as I wanted, but I only had ejaculation every 8 days, I kicked a lot more ass. I liked my life better. I liked my family better. I like my coworkers better. My company does better. I don't need as much sleep. I have more energy. I have more focus. Like it's kind of a big thing. So I buy it what the monk said.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there's a big temptation to finish, but I guess just resist that.
Here's where the temptation comes from. You have this operating system for your meat. It's the same thing that makes you eat everything, like junk food and whatever. It's like, oh, you might starve, eat it. Same thing a dog does. Like, oh, look, spoiled whatever in the trash can. Let me just eat that. You're like, that's disgusting, but you have the same process. Like, you might starve, so you should eat. So same thing on sex, reproduction, survival of the species. So the reptile must procreate is in there. And right when you're about ready to ejaculate, it steps up and pretends like it's you. And it's like, hey, there's a really good reason. Have you thought of all the reasons you should ejaculate right now? And it does it. And you're like, shit, I really wasn't going to do that. Well, once you're in charge of your operating system, which you should be, if you eat the right stuff, if you've trained your brain, it's your choice. And the other thing they warn you is don't have an orgasm that lasts more than half an hour. This is for men, not women. All this advice. Women, you need to have orgasms frequently. Sorry. I think it's painful to have an orgasm for half of an hour. In fact, anything over like 7 or 8 minutes, it's like your abs hurt, you can't breathe, and it's just not that pleasant.
Right.
But it's possible. And wow. So it was an unlikely experiment, and I just kind of try and talk openly about it without being, too crude. And
yeah, I've
had countless entrepreneurs and even some really successful guys come to me and like, Dave, I read that. I thought it was crazy. I tried it, and holy shit, like it works. So you want more energy? You want 20% boost in everything? Maybe, save it for Saturday night.
Lay off the orgasms. Stop flinging it around willy-nilly.
I'm not saying you can't, look at porn, although that messes with your dopamine levels if you do it too much. I'm not saying don't have sex. I'm saying have sex all the time. Just don't finish too often, and you're good to go. And for the women, when they have frequent orgasms, it doesn't make them weak. It makes them happy and gives them oxytocin. So in a relationship, this works out really nicely because you have more sex. The woman tends to enjoy it a lot, and the guy enjoys it a lot too. And then, once a week, you really enjoy it, and then you pass out, and then you're kind of grumpy the next day.
Interesting. Wow, man. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. I wanted to make sure we hit all the aspects of a well-rounded, biohacked, upgraded person. I think we did that. I'd urge anybody who's interested to look at bulletproofexec.com. You'll find multiple categories and tons of info and podcasts on each one, all for free. Dave, you want to take a second to tell them more about keeping up with you and your stuff?
Sure. If you want to get a copy of the Bulletproof Diet, again, this is one of those things that's free because I like to give stuff away that helped me a lot. Go to bulletproofdietbook.com and you can download it. The Bulletproof blog is at bulletproofexec.com, like Bulletproof Executive. And check out Bulletproof Coffee. If you just do that once, made with the right beans, the brain octane oil, and the right kind of butter, you'll experience a level of performance that you probably haven't felt in a long time.
Agreed.
It's a big claim, but there's like hundreds of thousands of people who've tried it and written about it. And there's all these testimonials. There's world-class athletes. The LA Lakers just said they drink it before games. One of my friends who's a lead drummer at a band who sold 12 million albums. He just sent me an email today and said, we just got out of the recording studio. We just finished wrapping up our new album. And we were like mainlining Bulletproof Coffee. Like we drank it every time before we did a recording session. So like super talented people use it to increase their performance. World poker champions, all that kind of stuff. Just try it once. You don't have to do it. And I'm not going to make a fortune or not off this, but man, I just want you to feel really good once and realize that's what I want every day to be like. When you do that, you're on the path. That's cool.
Yeah, man. I'm with you. I definitely felt the effects. I've tried several nootropics that are supposed to increase energy and brain function, and I didn't really feel a noticeable effect. I thought, is this working? Is it not? But with the Bulletproof Coffee, I felt like it was definitely noticeable. And, a lot of that stuff doesn't affect me. I'm pretty dense, so I thought that was pretty telling. I thought that was a good sign. So, well, this has been great, man. Thanks again. Much appreciated. I know thinking about health for me in terms of hacks and upgrades has made it a lot more interesting and easier to keep in mind before making shitty choices. Hopefully the people will find that as well. So thanks again, Dave. Keep doing what you do.
You got it. I really appreciate it, Greg. Have a great evening.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye.